It's a windy day today. My voice is a little deeper because every time I come to Utah, I get allergies like crazy. I hope you guys can hear me because it's really windy. Anyway, if you're a big fan of 80s movies, or at least lived in the 80s and watched the modern movies of the day, so you may have run across a certain movie called 3 O'Clock High. It was pretty famous at the time. It's not so much anymore. It was a pretty big deal. Growing up in Ogden, they filmed it here, and it was a really big deal. I grew up not too far from here, and we used to go by and see all the places they were filming, and I don't think anybody super famous was in it, but it was a big deal. Anyway, if you are a fan of that movie, you may recognize this place. Yes, it's Ogden High. Ogden High is a really famous landmark in Ogden. It's an Art Deco masterpiece built during the Depression. They spent a lot of time on it. I grew up seeing this school. I even took guitar lessons here. I didn't go to high school here. I grew up in North Ogden, so I went to Weber High. But this was always a cool school. I always thought it was cool. It's huge. Look at this giant tree that fell over. It's been so windy. Giant tree fell over and there's some kids playing on it. It's crazy. This happens sometimes in Utah. We get freak weather. Oh, I thought that was cool. Well, I was wondering, if you're a fan of movies from the early 90s, especially kids movies, there's a little place in Ogden where they filmed something that's pretty iconic. I would actually even say it was sort of iconic. It's a big deal. Everybody's here taking pictures of the tree. I just happened to want to come to this location and the tree just happened to be here. But if you're a big fan of movies from the early 90s, especially ones that were filmed in Ogden, and those in Ogden know exactly where I'm going. Anybody recognize this place? Something very magical happened there back in the 50s. Well, not really. It was actually more 91-ish, 92-ish. Of course, I'm referring to the movie The Sandlot. The Sandlot was filmed, well, a scene from it was filmed here. A very memorable scene where, was it Smalls? Kisses Wendy Peppercorn. He pretends to drown and he kisses Wendy Peppercorn. They never changed the paint. It's always been like that. They painted it for the movie, and I guess they've just kept it. They filmed a lot of it in Midvale too. In fact, the Sandlot's in Midvale. The Sandlot itself. Here's another shot of the pool. Ogden, Utah. I'm here in Ogden, Utah. I'm here on 25th Street. 25th Street is probably the most, actually it is the most famous street in Ogden, Utah. In fact, it was once called Two-Bit Street, the oldest and scariest street in Ogden. It still sort of is, but not really. They've been redoing it my whole lifetime. When I was really young, back in the 80s, my dad drove me on 25th Street to show, like, you know, how bad it can actually be and how, you know, run down and scary it was. And I do remember just down this way, just down a little bit past this area, down there were actually prostitutes, and they had like the feather boas and the fishnets. I remember that very vividly. I was really young. Didn't quite understand what they were, but I had a good idea because my dad used to show me a bunch of movies. We used to watch like Miami Vice and things, and you know, we got an idea of what prostitutes were. They filmed a lot of movies here. The movie This Boy's Life with Leonardo DiCaprio and Ellen Barkin, they walked right up the street. I know that as a fact because I was an extra in that movie when I was in junior high. Kokomo Club, mentioned in Jack Kerouac's, oh, what book is that? He comes to Ogden and he talks about, and he stayed at the Cocoa Club. It is Kokomo Club. Kokomo Club. He stayed there and talked about how groovy those guys are back on Two-Bit Street. Coming up here, right up here is an Italian restaurant now. While I was growing up, and ever since the 40s, this was a Chinese place, if you can notice by the dragon right here. Now it just says Historic 25th Street, but it's an Italian place now. It was originally built as a old Nickelodeon. The street is definitely that. This street goes back all the way to the 1800s. The Union Station is burned down and been rebuilt. The one that's there now was built in the 30s. So, and that had replaced like a beloved Union Station of the time. So this place is very old. Oldest area, and it used to be the prostitute, well, I already said that, but it was the prostitute capital of Ogden. It was the murder capital of America at one time. Can you believe that? Of America. There were gangsters. Al Capone had rumored to have tunnels all through 25th Street. They say that's not true, but there's a lot of proof that there was. A lot of Asian gangs, Chinese gangs. I mean, these are like 20s. Jack Dempsey got his start on 25th Street as a waiter at some restaurant. I don't know exactly where it is. But back to the historic. This was called the Star Noodle, and it would say Star Noodle up there. That's how I remember it. Originally built as a Nickelodeon. It was a Western Nickelodeon. I had the chance of going in there right after Star Noodle went out of business, and they were selling this building. I actually went inside when I was a student at Weber State, and they had the original Western mural still up on the wall from the 20s, maybe even earlier. And I guess part of the deal, the facade used to look a lot different. It used to have a bunch of white paneling. It looked completely different than this. They actually took the original facade from the Nickelodeon. You can tell it's an entrance to a theater, and turned it into a restaurant inside. It's completely gutted, totally new inside. It's really cool.